Welcome back to the deep dive. Ready to explore something new?
Always. What are we diving into today?
Today, it's the world of international business strategy.
So much more than just crunching numbers in a boardroom, right?
Exactly. Think about it, understanding different cultures, figuring out all kinds of different markets.
And making decisions that could have a ripple effect across the globe. High stakes.
Absolutely. And to guide us through this maze, we have a true expert in international business joining us today.
Someone who's been there, done that, and knows the real-world challenges.
Exactly. Now, for this deep dive, we're turning to a textbook called International Business Strategy and Cross-Cultural Management, an applied approach.
A great choice. And the author team is impressive. We've got Nicole Franziska Richter.
Focused on cross-cultural management at the University of Southern Denmark.
Right. Then there's Jesper Strandskov, bringing decades of research experience to the table.
Also from the University of Southern Denmark, deep into business administration.
And we can't forget Sven Hoff, an expert in human resource management, all the way from Helmut Schmidt University in Hamburg.
And rounding out the team is Vassal Terrace, focusing on international business at the University of North Carolina at Greensboro.
And leading the X-Culture Project, that huge global student collaboration program. Talk about a global team.
A perfect match for our topic. Now, this book really digs into the practical side of building and executing these international business strategies.
No ivory tower theories here.
Yeah.
They give you the tools and the real-world examples you need.
Love that. So let's start with a foundational element, the strategy statement. What do these authors have to say about that?
Well, they really emphasize that it's like a company's DNA. A strategy statement should be super clear, totally unique to that company.
Okay, so far so good.
And it needs to lay out the objective, the scope of what they do, and crucially, their competitive advantage.
Competitive advantage. That's one of those classic business buzzwords. Can we unpack that a bit?
Sure. Think of it this way. It's what sets a company apart.
Makes them stand out.
Exactly. It's what gives them an edge. It could be anything,
Like the lowest prices.
Absolutely. Or maybe they have a totally unique product, nothing else like it.
Or a brand reputation that's just rock solid.
Yeah.
Everyone trusts them.
Precisely. And the book uses this fantastic example, Boeing. They made this big shift, you see.
Fill us in.
They decided to go from being the biggest in the aircraft industry to putting profit front and center.
A big change in mindset.
Completely. And it totally reshaped how their organization works. Efficiency became the name of the game.
Not just being big, but being profitable. So this strategy statement, it's not just words on paper, huh?
Not at all. It can transform a company from the inside out. It guides everything, from how they use their resources to the everyday stuff.
Okay, so we've got our roadmap, our strategy statement. But before we hit the road, we need to know what we're getting into.
The landscape, right. What's the lay of the land?
Exactly. How competitive is this market we're stepping into?
The authors bring up a classic tool here, Porter's 5 Forces. It's like a magnifying glass, helps you dissect how an industry works.
I'm intrigued. Break it down for us.
Okay, so you've got the threat of new players, right? Companies trying to bust in.
Disruptors.
Then the power of suppliers. They control those key ingredients you need.
Got it.
And the power of buyers. They can really sway prices and what features get offered.
Makes sense.
Oh, and don't forget about substitutes, the sneaky ones. Products from different industries entirely, but they could steal your customers.
Like if everyone starts using electric scooters instead of taxis, the taxi industry's got a problem.
Exactly. And lastly, the constant battle rivalry among existing competitors, everyone fighting for that market share.
So many forces at play.
Yeah.
But understanding this, how does that actually help a company?
If you can see how each force affects profitability, you can spot the danger zones and the golden opportunities.
So, say there's a high chance of new companies entering the market. How could a company use that knowledge to their advantage?
Well, they might double down on building a strong brand that customers are loyal to.
Something that sets them apart, something those new companies can't easily replicate.
Right. Or maybe they invest heavily in R&D, creating products that are really tough to copy.
Always staying one step ahead, like a game of chess.
Exactly. Thinking a few moves ahead. But it's not enough to just analyze the outside world, right?
You got to look inwards, too.
Exactly. What are your internal strengths and where are you vulnerable? That's where the resource-based view comes in.
Finding those unique assets a company has, leveraging them.
That's it. And the authors introduce another framework here, the VRIO framework.
Another acronym.
I know, right? But it's a good one. It stands for valuable, rare, inimitable, and organized. It helps figure out which resources can give you that lasting competitive advantage.
Okay, let's break it down. Valuable seems pretty straightforward, something that brings in the money.
It's more than that. A valuable resource helps you grab those opportunities or dodge those competitive threats we talked about.
Okay, I see. So something that gives you an edge in that competitive landscape,
Hmm.
like Apple's brand reputation,
Right.
right? That lets them charge a premium.
Exactly. And rare, that one's pretty self-explanatory.
Not something everyone else has.
Right. It might be a patent on some groundbreaking tech, or maybe exclusive access to a particular market.
Makes sense. So valuable and rare, those are key. Now, what about inimitable? What makes something hard to copy?
Well, it could be something protected, like a patent, or just incredibly complex to replicate.
Like Coca-Cola's secret formula.
Exactly. Or think about a company's unique culture, or, that secret recipe for world-famous fried chicken. Those are tough to imitate.
Those are the real gems. Okay, last one. Organized. So this is all about having your act together, right?
Precisely. You can have amazing resources, but if you're not set up to use them right, they're just going to waste.
Like having all the ingredients for a gourmet meal, but no idea how to cook, right?
A perfect analogy. And the authors use a great example from the car world Toyota, their lean manufacturing system.
Focused on efficiency, cutting out waste. It's pretty famous.
Exactly. That system was once super valuable, something rare that really helped them dominate.
Like their secret weapon, but one they built and perfected over time.
Right. It wasn't just luck. It was strategic thinking, combined with operational excellence.
So we've done all this analysis, right? Looking at the competition, sizing up our strengths and weaknesses. Now what? How do we use all this to actually make decisions?
That's where the SWOT analysis comes in. It helps connect those dots, the internal and the external stuff.
Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. I remember this one from business school.
But the authors point out that it's not just about making a list.
There's more to it.
Absolutely. You've got to prioritize, figure out which of those elements are actionable, and be clear about what's internal to the company versus what's happening in the market itself.
So it's strategic brainstorming, but with a focus.
Exactly. Looking for those high-impact actions you can take. And you know what? The authors actually encourage the listener to do a personal SWOT analysis. Ooh, I like that. Applying it to your own life. Think about a goal you have or a challenge you're facing. What are your strengths and weaknesses in that situation? What opportunities are out there? And what threats could get in your way?
So it's like a strategic snapshot of your own life.
I love that.
Okay, so we've done our SWOT. We've got a sense of the competitive landscape. Now, how do we actually position ourselves in the market? Stand out, grab those customers.
That's where positioning comes in. It's about carving out a unique space, differentiating yourself from the competition, and finding that message that really resonates with your target audience.
So it's strategy meeting marketing.
You could say that. And the book talks about market segmentation, targeting, and then crafting that compelling value proposition. Want to break those down?
Either way.
Okay, so market segmentation, that's dividing up potential customers into groups, those with similar needs and characteristics.
Makes sense. Like, not everyone wants the same thing.
Exactly. Targeting, then, is picking which of those groups you're going to focus on.
And the value proposition, that's what you're bringing to the table.
Right.
What makes you the best choice?
Right. It's that unique bundle of benefits that makes you stand out. But here's where it gets interesting. The authors push us to think beyond just those functional needs. They talk about this concept called jobs to be done.
Jobs to be done. Intriguing.
The idea is to dig deeper, understand those motivations behind customer choices.
Like, what's the underlying reason someone buys a product? Not just what the product does, but what it does for them on a deeper level.
Exactly. It's about understanding the why behind that purchase. And they have this great quote from the founder of Revlon. In the factory, we make cosmetics. In the drugstore, we sell hope.
Wow, that's powerful. So it's not just about a lipstick, it's about what that lipstick represents, the feeling it gives you.
You got it. But we've been talking a lot about strategy, the big picture. At some point, we need to get down to the nitty-gritty, right? How do we actually make this stuff happen?
Translate vision into action.
Exactly. And that's where the business model comes in. It's the blueprint for how a company creates value, delivers it, and then captures value.
The book talks about a tool for this, the business model canvas.
It's a great visual framework, helps map out those key elements of your business.
What kind of elements?
You've got your customer segments, your value propositions, your revenue streams, even key partnerships. It's like a one-page snapshot of how it all works together.
A high-level overview.
Yeah.
But then you need to take it global, right? Which is a whole other challenge. Do you stick with a single global brand, standardized everything? Or do you tailor things to each market? Go local.
Ah, the classic dilemma. Global integration versus local responsiveness. The authors bring up a framework for this too. It's called the Integration Responsiveness Framework, or the IR framework. It helps figure out your strategic options, depending on the pressures you're facing.
So, like some industries, there's a lot of pressure to be consistent globally.
Exactly. And others, it's all about adapting to local tastes. The framework lays out four main approaches.
Hit me with them.
Okay, so first, you've got the global strategy. This is all about efficiency, standardization.
Got it. When does that work best?
Think about industries where consistency is key and you need to keep costs down. Products like computer chips, industrial chemicals, things like that.
Customers everywhere expect the same quality no matter where they buy it.
Exactly. So companies like Intel, DuPont, those would be good examples of a global strategy. But then you have industries where local tastes really matter.
Food, for sure.
Yeah.
And fashion, right. You can't just sell the same styles everywhere.
You got it. That's where a multinational strategy comes in. It prioritizes that local adaptation, even if it means things aren't quite as efficient.
So different marketing for the same product in different countries, maybe even tweaking the product itself.
Right. Think about McDonald's. They've got those localized menu items all over the world, catering to different tastes and cultural sensitivities. Smart move.
Absolutely. Makes perfect sense. But what if you've got pressure for both? Global consistency and local adaptation. That seems tricky.
That's where the transnational strategy comes in, trying to balance those two competing forces.
Like walking a tightrope.
Exactly. Companies using this approach, they might have a core set of standardized products, but allow for some flexibility in marketing or distribution.
Think global, act local.
That's the idea. A great example is Nestle. They've got those global brands, Kit Kat, Nescafé, but they also offer variations, tweak the packaging to match those local tastes.
It's like finding that sweet spot, right? Between staying consistent and giving people what they want locally. Now, we haven't talked about the last one, the regional strategy. What's that all about?
Well, the regional strategy recognizes that competition often happens on a regional level, not truly globally. Think about cars, food and beverages, things like that. Consumer preferences, regulations, they can vary a lot from region to region.
So instead of trying to conquer the whole world, you focus on being a leader in, say, Europe or Southeast Asia.
Exactly. You get those regional economies of scale, and you can really tailor your offerings to those shared cultural values and preferences.
Makes sense. So we've got these four strategic approaches: global, multinational, transnational, and regional. How do you choose the right one? How does a company actually make that decision?
The authors provide this great questionnaire, helps guide companies through that process.
So like a checklist.
Kind of. It helps them assess those pressures for integration and responsiveness in their industry. It asks questions like, how important is global brand recognition? How much can we standardize our products? How much customization is really needed?
Getting to the heart of the matter, figuring out those key factors. But sometimes all this talk about frameworks, strategies, it can feel a bit abstract,
I know what you mean.
It'd be great to see how this actually plays out in the real world.
Well, the authors do just that. They use the IKEA case study to illustrate the complexities of international business strategy in action.
Okay, IKEA.
Yeah.
Everyone knows IKEA. What did they do right? What did they get wrong?
It's a fascinating story, for sure. Initially, they took a global approach, pretty much replicating their stores and products around the world.
Their design aesthetic, the whole flat pack concept, it does seem to have global appeal.
Right. But it didn't always translate perfectly. They ran into some serious challenges in China.
China. How so?
Well, their low price positioning, which was a big part of their success elsewhere, backfired in China.
Wait, low prices were a problem. How is that possible?
Because in China, IKEA was actually perceived as high-end, aspirational. Their prices were higher than local competitors, which clashed with that whole low-cost image.
So interesting. It's like the meaning got flipped.
Yeah.
Cultural context, right. It can completely change the game.
Exactly. And they had issues with their sustainability focus, too. That was a hit in other markets, but not so much in China at the time.
Okay, so they needed to make some adjustments. What did they do?
They repositioned themselves, emphasized the Western style, that aspirational aspect. They also worked on lowering prices to be more competitive. And they made changes to the products in the store format to better fit Chinese tastes.
Yeah, balancing act. Staying true to their brand, but also adapting.
Precisely. It's a perfect example of how flexibility, that ability to adapt, is so essential in international business.
And it shows that you've got to understand the culture, the economics, the whole social context of a market before you jump in. What works in one place can totally flop in another.
Couldn't agree more. One size fits all rarely works when you're going global. You have to be ready to adapt, learn as you go.
So much to consider when you're taking a business global. It's
Yeah.
not just about finding the right strategy, right?
Right. We've talked about technology, but there's another layer. Cultural shifts, demographic changes happening globally. Companies need to be paying attention.
More pieces to the puzzle, huh?
Exactly. One of the biggest is this rise of a global middle class, especially in emerging markets.
Millions of new consumers, different needs, different expectations, different buying power.
Exactly. Companies can't just keep doing what they've always done. They've got to figure out how to connect with these new consumers.
So it's not just about offering the right price point anymore. It's deeper than that.
Much deeper. You gotta understand those cultural nuances that influence how people make decisions.
Okay, so we're talking cultural values, communication styles, even those little things like color preferences, symbolism. That stuff matters.
Absolutely. A marketing campaign that works in one culture might totally bomb in another. And then you've got these demographic changes happening in developed countries. Aging populations.
Lots of implications there for healthcare, for senior living, for all kinds of products and services.
Right. It's a whole new market emerging. Companies need to be ready.
So much to keep track of. Is there a simple takeaway here? Something listeners can walk away with?
I think the big takeaway is this. To be successful globally, you need to be flexible, adaptable, and you've got to really get those cultural and economic contexts. Every market's different.
It's not about finding that one magic formula then.
Not at all. It's about being nimble, responsive, always learning and evolving. The world's changing fast.
And being culturally sensitive, right? What works in one place, it might not translate in another.
Exactly. Cultural intelligence, it's not just a nice bonus anymore. It's essential, especially on that global stage.
So the more interconnected we get, the more complex this whole international business thing becomes, and the more important it is to get it right.
Definitely. And those companies that prioritize that cultural understanding, that embrace new technologies and stay ahead of the game, those are the ones that are going to thrive.
Some great insights to ponder. We've covered a lot of ground today, from those strategy statements to that IKEA case study to the impact of all these new technologies.
It's been a great discussion. Lots to think about.
It really has. And before we wrap up, one last food for thought for our listeners. We've talked about this balancing act, global versus local, but how might all these emerging technologies change that dynamic even further?
Ooh, that's a great question. Will we see virtual global teams becoming the norm, working seamlessly across borders? Will AI revolutionize those global supply chains? What about the future of work? How will all this reshape the global economy?
So many possibilities. It's an exciting and maybe a little bit daunting time to be in the world of international business.
It certainly is. The potential is huge.
Well, to all our listeners out there, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep exploring, keep learning, keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible in the world of international business. It's a wild ride,